Welcome, everyone. My name is Delmar Larsen. I am the founder and director of the LibreTexts project. I'm presenting with Kim Ernstmeyer from Wisconsin for this Open Ed presentation. The title of our talk is Collaboration in Action, OpenRN, LibreTexts and the Next Generation Project. This is a collaborative project that involves the ADAPT homework infrastructure and leveraging it for next generation nursing. The first thing in order to be able to mention, and this is somewhat preaching to the choir, but it's important in order to reinforce why we're doing what we're doing, in that the LibreTexts project and Open in general, we're trying to remove the financial burden of forcing students to pay significantly, at least maybe even any at all, for required educational resources. And that's the first step in terms of addressing the equity gap. OER enables this by freeing funds that are better spent for other purposes, whether they are for living, accommodations, food, and other sorts. OER also provides opportunity in order to customize resources and to address student and class identities. LibreTexts project has been working for 15 years in terms of advancing OER for a range of different facets of openness, including textbooks. And now in the last few years, we've been addressing homework system via the ADAPT infrastructure. ADAPT was initially funded by the U.S. Department of Education, the Open Textbook Pilot Award, and then the funding has continued through awards from the state of California in terms of building an infrastructure to complement the textbooks that are in the LibreTexts corpus and outside the LibreTexts corpus. You can request accounts for any verified instructor at adapt.libretext.org. And I just wanted to give you an overview of ADAPT before I hand this thing off to Kim in order to go into more details associated with nursing. So the ADAPT infrastructure has different facets depending upon what people want to use it for. Right now, it is a free massive question bank for instructors in order to capitalize on. We have 180,000 questions. Most of them are focusing on STEM fields, but we're expanding broadly into other fields. For example, Spanish as a second language is one of the most popular fields that ADAPT has today. I don't know of any instructor that doesn't want to have access to a large free question bank in order to capitalize on it. So it provides a mechanism that's very important in terms of advancing education in general, and certainly openness in specific. The ADAPT homework platform is free as a homework infrastructure for the students and faculty of the state of California. It's because of the sizable investment of funds the state has actually put into the place. So while the question bank is freely available to all verified instructors, the actual homework requires a bit more financial buy-in, and that's for sustainability purposes. So if you're outside of the state of California, then we provide it super cheap, significantly cheaper than commercial alternatives or other open alternatives. I use the term open with quotes there. So let me just describe a bit more about what ADAPT is designed to do. So the focus of ADAPT in the development is to not have to recreate things from scratch and to use what's available out there in the open source community in order to be able to pursue what we want for specific fields. So that being said, the infrastructure that we have in ADAPT is designed in order to be able to both be used as auto-graded or as open-ended, where auto-graded uses a computer in order to grade, and open-ended requires a grader, oftentimes an instructor or a TA, in order to be able to grade. So this mimics in part of a learning management system infrastructure. However, the auto-graded technology is multifaceted because we introduce multiple sub-technologies folded into the ADAPT overlay. That includes web work, which is a technology initially out of University of Rochester, iMathAS, which is the technology underlying MyOpenMath or Lumen Learning's OHM, native technology, which is QTI based. Typically, those are the type of question types that are in learning management systems, and H5P, which is a technology that's more graphical based. And the intent off of here is that the interface to each of these technologies is the same through ADAPT. So you can pick and choose what technology, or more specifically, what question and what technology in order to suit your purposes without having to worry about the details behind how that specific technology operates. Open-ended questioning has the ability to upload text, audio, files, what's necessary for a more for human grading, and we have more advanced technologies that were being implemented. The questions that we have in ADAPT or the assignments and courses can be accessed in a variety of different ways. Students can access ADAPT directly through the ADAPT website, again at adapt.libretext.org. We can embed the questions in ADAPT either formatively or summatively, that is, whether it requires signing in order to take the score and store it in a gradebook or not, into our textbooks, and then that can make your textbook as part of your homework infrastructure. And at least there's some anecdotal evidence that that is a superior way in order to deliver questions than directly through accessing it as through the ADAPT website. We will be releasing later on this year mobile apps for both iPhone and Android. So it gives students the opportunity in order to do their homework on their phone, but it also gives us the opportunity as instructors in order to be able to use ADAPT for polling. So it can take the place of iClicker, another financially significant financial investment that students have to put in order to be able to capitalize on courses that use that. And lastly, and this actually applies to all those other modalities, you can embed the questions into your learning management system, or you can pass back any of these submissions through your learning management system through either LTI or through some deeper integrations through the API. We have two types of approaches in which we build courses. Courses can be delivered in a more traditional sense, where you have a series of assignments in a course. Those assignments are open at a specific date, closed at a specific date, and you interact with it in very similar fashion that you have in most, if not all, learning management systems. ADAPT is called ADAPT because it has some simple adaptive learning capabilities. That is the opportunity in order to make it so that students can actually have a different experience in doing their homework based on their past or their agency. And the way that we formulate that is via what we refer to as learning trees. Learning trees or decision trees, if you have familiarity in that terminology, is an infrastructure where students, instead of having a single question, they have the ability in order to, if they get the question wrong, to start to go into a remediation chain in order to address specific skills necessary in order to master that question. That provides us the opportunity in order to act as a virtual tutor, but it also provides the students the agency in order to be able to be engaged with their material, and anything that increases engagement between the material and the student increases learning. It also starts to build self-efficacy that's out there, and metacognition skills. These are the skills that oftentimes are poorly prepared in more advanced ADAPT learning infrastructures because they spoon feed the actual steps to the student via the algorithm, quote unquote. So I mentioned that there are multiple technologies underlying ADAPT. One technology that people can access directly as part of the greater LibreVerse of technologies is the Studio. The Studio is our repository for H5P. This is freely available for anyone who wants to use it in the community by, again, going to studio.libretext.org. And then you can request an account and you can actually create your questions and upload them, and you don't need to pay companies lots of money in order to be able to invest that. That's part of what we do for the community. And then, as I mentioned before, we have the ability to embed those questions. This is an H5P question, but again, it could be any of the technologies in ADAPT directly into a textbook. And this is an intermediate nutrition textbook out of Kansas State University that has this, that uses the textbook as the homework system in order to increase greater engagement. So Studio, I should skip over that, hand this off to Kim while I mention that ADAPT has a significant amount of investment involved in developing it. We're very excited about where it's going and expanding it to new fields like the advanced nursing capabilities that Kim is talking about now. So take it away, Kim.
Thank you, Delmar. So the Next Gen RN project is an example of how we've taken everything that's been created with ADAPT and customized it specifically for nursing next generation style questions. So those of you that are nursing faculty know that the Next Gen NCLEX was launched in April 2023. And this was our effort to allow students to practice these types of questions before they actually saw them on their exam. And as you know, there weren't a lot of companies that were providing that practice, especially with bow ties. So in the next few minutes, I'll be demonstrating a bow tie question. So we received additional funding from our state core industry grant, and we were able to customize the ADAPT software for specific next generation style questions. So you as a faculty member can create any type of question you'd like that mimics the NCLEX, including full case studies with 6 questions, and I'll be going through here and showing you how to do that. Our initial deliverables were to create a repository of at least 20 full next generation style case studies with 6 questions each. We're already up to over 28, and it continues to grow daily. So when you create a case study, it has tab data similar to a next generation style case study where the faculty member can choose what types of tabs you'd like to display, including patient information, H&P, progress notes, vital signs, labs and diagnostic results, orders, the medical administration record, and the handoff report. You can also determine when that appears within the case study. I'll talk about that more in a minute. As I mentioned, traditionally there's 6 next generation style questions per case study. That's what we use as a standard. And as our case studies are developed, we are creating these as formative assessments, meaning students immediately get correct and incorrect feedback along with links to the OpenRN textbooks where they can review content if they need to, and they can resubmit and retry. That's up to the instructor though to set those settings in terms of how they'd like that to display. Here's an example of a full screen case study. You can see on the left are the tabs of the information provided to the student. And on the right is the very first question. This is a closed drop-down question. Not a lot of real estate on the screen, so you can expand each of these to see more. So here's the expanded left side where the student can go through each tab and have a full screen of data. You see the different times listed there, and you can determine what you want to show when throughout the case study. And here's the expanded right side with the question where they can select the option. This is the feedback screen. So after they submit their answer, and this was an example of a matrix question where they had to determine what was improving, what was worsening, and what was no change. And they hit submit. They got the feedback simply incorrect, try again, but there were green check marks next to what was correct and red X's next to what was incorrect, or if they didn't select anything that would show up as red. And these are all have partial scoring according to how the NCSBN uses partial scoring on the NCLEX. So that was all programmed by the ADAPT team. Here's an example for a correct answer. So after they answer it, they submit. You can see the green check marks for what was correctly selected and what was correctly not selected, along with that feedback in pointing them to the direction where they can find more information within the textbooks. Here's an example of how the faculty member can create the tab data. You can see on the left here, where you can choose the type of tab that you would like to create. And as it unfolds, you can see here the different first application and the next part here, the next application. That's where it's linked to the question within the case study. So this is when the next bit of information will appear, fully controlled by the faculty member. This is a list of the different types of next generation style case studies. As I mentioned, bow tie is one of the most popular. These are all designed based on the NCLEX standards. So here's an example of a bow tie. We get a lot of questions asked about the bow tie. For those of you that aren't familiar with the bow tie, the center column is the hypothesis, meaning the nursing student reads the scenario, they read the tab data, and they determine, for example, what's the most likely condition that the patient is experiencing. Then on the left side, they have to select 2 actions that they would take to address that problem. And on the right are 2 parameters that they're going to monitor to determine if their interventions were successful. So one important thing to point out, and Delmar can jump in here too, is to meet federal accessibility standards, these bow tie questions were programmed within ADAPT to meet those standards. So on the NCLEX currently, these are drag and drop questions. So a student would select the answer and drag it up to the box, the appropriate box. That doesn't meet accessibility standards. So just a small customization here was, instead of dragging and dropping, they click on the answer, and they can change what they click on until they actually hit submit and submit that answer. Here's an example of the scoring for the bow tie question. Again, you see the green check marks for what's correctly selected, and yet they would see the red for incorrect. So within ADAPT, all of the questions developed for the NCLEX are next generation NCLEX questions are in this course called Next Gen RN. So if you go to public on the dashboard within ADAPT and search for Next Gen RN, that's where you will find this repository of questions. We've also, as a side note, developed questions for the textbook. So as Delmar mentioned, you can also pull those down into your LMS if you wish. Just know that those are marked separately as very public, where the answers are provided to the students immediately. So to get started, go to adapt.libretext.org/login, and up on the top right, click on Contact Us, and that's how they verify that you are an instructor. And once you're verified, then you can view these public questions. Once you have a public personal account, you can import those public questions into your personal account and then integrate those with the LMS, as Delmar was explaining earlier. So I am at my question slide here. Is there anything, Delmar, you'd like to add to the process?
No, that sounds great.
So for more information about the OpenRN project, go to www.cvtc.edu/OpenRN. You can read about our project and see virtual simulations and other things that we are creating that have CC by licensing. And as we mentioned, go to adapt.libretext.org/login to request your personal account. Thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us.